Today for Devotions with Daniela, we are reading True Tales of Misery, Betrayal, and Abuse, 12-step horror stories. We are in the story of Berenice. So long that we've been reading it for like 5 or 6 days straight. It's called, it's not personal, it's spiritual. Wait. It's called, Don't Be Angry, it's spiritual. Because cults always want to control your emotions. So she's been going to different AAs, she's been raped twice, she's been not supported, all the classic normal stuff. I remember bands of men assembling for private big book meetings. These spiritual sessions would result in the pack members acting as if anything they did was excusable because anyone who they hurt had put themselves in the position to be hurt. I remember one guy, a grandfather for heaven's sake, who was sponsoring 8 or more guys at once. He used to throw parties at his house, after which the younger women from the club, ages 17 to 20, would be invited to sleep over. One of the girls, just a few years past the age of consent, ended up becoming his girlfriend. I really didn't think much of this at the time, but today I shudder because this grandpa is one of the men who laughed upon hearing about my grape. His attitude is that grape is no more than slightly aggressive schmecks that the women didn't plan on having that day. Our legal system defines it as a felony, but the big book seems to override legal definition in the rooms, since it's held up to be spiritually inspired and therefore the word of God. Which, by the way, classic cult thing to do, right? Say that your words are the word of God. Also, classic cult thing to do to get your people to not use the outside legal system. And you ask me, the psychological fallout, which can last for years, is just an overreaction in their eyes. It's up to the women to mop up the emotional mess so the men never have to see what effects such crimes have on women. And you ask me why I drank. In their defense, however, I must say that the natural socialization of males is BS as well. Since childhood, men are desensitized to pain. They are encouraged to kick, hit, conquer, and to be aggressive. Say women experience much more pain than men do. They are encouraged to kick, hit, conquer, and be aggressive. They are discouraged from crying and are encouraged to swallow, repress their pain, which ends up coming out as violence, controlling behavior, and aggressiveness against anyone who is lower in the hierarchy. AA does a great job at keeping men's pain repressed. Instead of becoming angry at a father who shamed him, a peer group that ridicules him, and a culture which demands macho behavior, a man is encouraged to deal with his own pain with the same useless platitudes. Give it to God, turn it over, practice acceptance. When the AA House of Cards tumbled, I could see the abuses against women which were happening right under everyone's nose. When your organization has a name for it, 13th stepping, it's an organizational problem. In addition to the lost and confused garden variety alcoholic, there were also predators lurking in the rooms. The pressed shirts and crisply pleated slacks couldn't hide it any longer. When my big book blinders fell to the ground, I could finally see what was going on. And by the way, nobody has an issue with the fact that some predators and some bad people are going to show up to AA meetings. They're open meetings, right? This is one of the things they try to say. The issue is that when one of them criminally harms another one, AA always chooses to support the criminal and not the victim. That's the issue. When my big book blinders fell to the ground, I could finally see what was going on. I could finally see that the AA gurus were spiritual leaders of the TV evangelist kind, rather than the kind-hearted, trusted servants that they were actually pretending to be. I could see that these charlatans were actually driven by a thirst for power over their peers, rather than true philanthropy. I could also see that they operated from the belief that their status of self-appointed leader entitled them to special privileges with young and naive women. Get them while they're hot, preferably the same day they get their 1-year peace. I could see how certain men scanned the rooms for naive or severely codependent women in order to exploit them for schmecks. Accept the fact that you're powerless has a very different meaning when administered to a codependent woman with extremely low self-esteem than when it's administered to a bullheaded, arrogant, power-abusing male, the type for whom the AA program was originally written. I saw the racket the predators were working. Do anything you want to them. They will be shamed by the group for reacting with anger. They've been socialized to be good girls, to follow the rules. You can have ultimate control over them by convincing them that they need to give up control. Their self-esteem is so low, it doesn't matter anyway. Just tell them they're powerless. They'll have to forgive you. The group will shame them if they don't. Their sponsors will tell them that that they put themselves in that position. To challenge the game, they'll have to challenge AA. Nobody in their right minds would do that. And when I tell you I have received threats of unaliving or that I should go unalive myself for talking about the negatives of AA. So culty. So bad. They literally try to destroy people who speak against them in the same way that cults like Synanon do, which came from AA, shockingly. It's always good to know your cult families. Oxford Group, AA, Synanon, troubled teen industry. Torturous prison camps for teenagers. Yeah, that came from AA. That's the kind of organization Alcoholics Anonymous is and always has been. We all know the big book specifically states, even when a situation was not entirely our fault, we find that somewhere early on, we made a decision based on self that placed us in a position to be hurt. And I say this in every video. This is a cult tactic of blaming the individual for systemic issues. All cults do it. What does this mean? If I'd been thinking of the welfare of my group, none of this would have happened. That I can actually control unpredictable events by restricting my life to the scrubbing of coffee urns? When the wall tumbled, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I spoke out against the 13th stepping. I told the meeting that in the room lurks sober man. He's got so much time in the program. He comes to beginners meetings to SPRAD, spread the good word of recovery to the young and newly sober women. But I made a grave tactical mistake when I spoke out against 13th stepping. I had anger in my voice. The AA cement that is packed into everyone's ears, another thin layer is added with every meeting, blocks out anything that is delivered with anger. In most cases, the longer one attends, the thicker the layer of cement. I asked to be escorted out of the meeting, and 2 members did so. They had no clue what I was raving about. One of them told me to remember that I am my own worst enemy. Imagine that. Me. I'm the one I should be afraid of. What a frightening way to approach life. If my children are gunned down by hoodlums in the street, if politicians take away my right, if my doctor abuses his power, assaults me during a routine examination, and the police fail to protect me, I should remember that I am my own worst enemy? Like hell I am. I saw a woman react when I spoke up against the predators. I saw her facial expression change from the usual smile to horror. I called her that night to ask if she had ever run into a predator. The tone in her voice was a dead giveaway. She made a hasty and reactive effort to compare and not identify. Nope, not me. I never put myself in that position. The no's were too quick, too defensive. She was hiding something. What could it be? And what could be the message to the predator in such a response? Anyone whom the predator exploits puts herself in the position to be exploited. It doesn't matter if the predator preys on a newer member's innocence, ignorance, or vulnerability. It's the victim's fault for not being all-knowing and all-seeing. Essentially, for not being God. 2 other women whom I encountered had similar disturbing reactions. One of them offered her phone number because she too had been raped. But the way she dealt with it was by letting go, the AA wave of the hand way. She also mentioned that her artwork reflected a powerful schmexual theme. I learned later in art therapy that this is normal in the case of unresolved trauma, since it cannot be hidden from the subconscious and will come out in dreams, art, creative writing, etc. Luckily, I knew that this response was not healthy. Another gal I learned had been attacked on her way home from her very first AA meeting. I'm not going to get to finish that. What next? Will armies someday be able to slay our children while we remain emotionally serene? This is a very, very cult tactic. Attitude control. You better not show any negative emotions until we tell you to. Then it's time to cry.